All right, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Business Blast podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Wagner. Today, I have Jordan Harry with us. He is a 21-year-old who teaches people how to read faster and remember more. And for the past few years, he started his company, StudyFast, that has taught 5,000 plus people from over 140 countries. And he is a TEDx speaker, European triple jumper, international keynote speaker, and is now trying to get a black belt in karate in half the average time, along with learning Spanish. So we got a lot going on. Welcome to the show, man.
Thank you, brother. I like to keep myself out of trouble.
Yes. Well, you're definitely doing that. You don't got no time for trouble, man. So we like to start out going deep so we can get to know you quickly. So the first one I got for you is, what is the best story from your life that has an underlying valuable message?
Excellent. First of all, thank you again, Tyler, for having me and speak to your audience. I'm excited to bring some value. So in terms of a story in my life that kind of has led the way for where I am today was my mother. I'm a mama's boy, and she kind of installed something in me very early on, the fact that you'll never be ready. And, you know, for viewers and listeners right now, they're like, what? You'll never be ready? Your mother, she wasn't a great mom. But let me strip it back. In the sense of, I grew up being quite a perfectionist. I think anyone who does a sport, who's in business, who's an artist of some sort, you naturally have some level of OCD, of perfectionism, because your work's out there in front of the public eye. And what my mum taught me was to kind of water my own grass and not look over the fence and see what's going on someone else's grass. You know, that whole thing, grass is green on the other side. So from a young age, from sports, which wasn't triple jump, but it's now transcended into triple jump, to my studies, and to mainly business. And I think the most relatable one would be when building a website. Everyone spends money, plenty of time launching a website, when actual fact, if it's ready, quote unquote, it's too late, because you're always going to be making improvements.
Yeah. No, I love that. And there's actually, I think it goes in line with what you're saying. There's I think it's a Richard Branson quote. And he's like, if somebody asks you to do something and you don't know how to do it, or you're not ready, just say yes and then figure it out along the way.
I like that.
Dude, that's the way to do it. I think, like, cause like you said, and especially with the way the world's going, how fast things are going, by the time you are an expert at something, it's already going to be the next thing. So you just got to go and keep going.
100%.
So the next one I got for you is, what is the most valuable piece of information we should know that's within your expertise or industry?
So for me, in terms of, like, say, entrepreneurship, I teach speed reading and memory training. So this all kind of ties in. For me, it's the small wins. A lot of people set these huge goals, whether it's language learning. Like I said, I'm going through the process right now of aprendiendo español, learning Spanish. And at the beginning, I set myself the goal of, I want to be fluent in Spanish in 3 months. Now, the problem with that goal, tick, it's specific, it's measurable, and there's a time to it. The problem is that goal is massive. To become fluent, even in English, which I can just about speak, that is a tremendous goal. 21 years of age, and I think they say the average vocabulary for most English speakers is under 100 words that we use on a daily basis. So our vocabulary is actually really restricted in England. That varies country to country. So to pull it back, instead I wanted to become conversational within 3 months. And when I say conversational, a 15-minute general conversation with a native speaker, and I leave the conversation and they don't know that Spanish is my second language. So for me, day to day, with entrepreneurship, with sports, with my social life, it's small wins. There's a great book called The Myth of Motivation. And it's the idea that we get confident after doing something, that we get motivated after doing something. And so what happens is you need to find in your life areas where you can get small wins, because it's impossible to be happy all the time. And technically it's impossible to get these big wins all the time. So you need to find small wins that you can celebrate on a day-to-day basis. And for me, Every time I sell an online
Mhm.
course, I do a funny little dance. No one sees it apart from whoever's around me. Small wins could be someone like yourself reaching out to me, either wishing me well or an opportunity, and I'll relish
Mhm.
that moment. And before you know it, your small wins add up. It's compound interest. So day to day, just look for 1% better. And before you know it, you'll be a speed reader, you'll be a memory champion, and you'll be learning a martial arts.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's like, it's something too that I tell people is if you just start out just like completing tasks that are
Mm,
small in the morning, it leads to completing bigger ones. So for
yeah.
me, what I actually do is like first thing when I open my computer is I go to my Facebook birthdays and I just
Okay.
wish them all a happy birthday. And just by
Wow.
like doing that,
Mm,
every day, it just gets me in the flow of like, okay, completed that task. Now I can get to the next one. Whereas
very true.
without that little win that's so simple that I could have my assistant do for me, I
Mm,
like can't get like, it's just harder to get started. Um, so before we get to the next one, I want to dive deeper with you on this, how to speed read.
mhm.
So give it all to us, man. I want to know how do
How
you
long do we
do it?
have?
Yeah, dude, we got time for this.
Cool.
So I do Audible on like 1.25, 1.5, but I
Awesome.
don't really read books anymore just because of time constraints. So Audible,
Yeah.
I can do it quicker. But I'm open to it, and I think a
Yeah.
lot of people listening are. So just give us some of the best stuff you got, man. How can we read faster?
Cool. So I'll try and break it down into three simple steps to begin with,
Okay.
anyway. So the first one is I don't tell people to do something they don't enjoy. So
Mm-hmm.
number one, and this kind of comes into your lifestyle. If your lifestyle doesn't permit for you to read whilst commuting because people are driving, I would recommend straight away is getting your brain used to learning anything faster. So the thing everyone can do straight away is what you're doing already, Tyler, is putting audio videos on 1.5, two times, 1.25. Of course, if you're watching a movie, you want to enjoy it, take your time. And this is the great thing with speed reading. It's a superpower, one which you can turn on and you can turn off. So number one is looking at your lifestyle. Look at your day to day and where exactly can you get some time?
Mm-hmm.
Because quote unquote, no one is too busy. We find time to brush our teeth for 4 minutes a day. So I'm sure we can find time to read a book for 2 minutes. Okay, so the first one is look at your schedule, look at your lifestyle. If you don't enjoy reading, find other ways,
Mm-hmm.
audio, videos, and accelerate the speed of which you're consuming them. Number two is tiny habits. Now, there's no big science behind tiny habits. It's super practical. Whenever starting something new, like a reading habit, there's a resistance to starting. And we all experience this with procrastination. We all know we should sit down and we need to write that application, that document, that email. But our brain doesn't like pain. So our brain prefers, as a kind of safety mechanism, to do something of pleasure, like wish someone happy birthday
Yeah.
or, watch Netflix, as an example. Instead, what we need to do, and I believe there's different studies that say this, there's the first 20 seconds of starting activity, there's this massive resistance. But as soon as you sit down and get going, yeah, it's easier than what you thought in most cases. So the idea with this tiny habit is, let's take, for example, wanting to become a speed reader. Now, the first great way is to start reading more. So I encourage people to read for only 2 minutes a day. Now, for a lot of people listening right now, they're like, what, 2 minutes? That's not going to have any effect. Number one, if you know anything about habit formation, you need to do it often. And if you
Mm-hmm.
protect your habits, they'll one day protect you. So whether you believe in the whole 21 days, 60 days, 120 days to create a habit, 2 minutes a day is such a small goal, such a small task that you're like, it's easy. Okay, I'll sit down, do my 2 minutes. And what you'll find is you'll often go over the 2 minutes
Mm-hmm.
because you've gone past that resistance to start the activity. You're now actually getting quite involved in what you're reading. So there's two things that go on there. It's such a small goal, 2 minutes, that you'll do it, hopefully often. And number two is you'll probably go over the 2 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
To supplement the tiny habit, I encourage you, once again, to remove the resistance to starting it. Carry a book with you wherever you go. Make it easy on yourself. to remove all the excuses. So carry the book in your bag. Okay, it's going to get beaten up. Download Kindle. So you've always got it on your phone. We are no more out of arm's reach from our phone.
Mm-hmm.
So you have no excuse now if you have it on your phone. Yes, it is pink. Pink's a real man's color.
I love it.
Sorry if you're listening, I have a pink phone. And I also have pink spikes. It's one of my brands.
Hey, man, I'm in.
And then also what you want to do is have it on your bedside table. Wherever you can visually see it, and make it easy for yourself to start that habit. And number 3, and this is probably the most efficient way for me to tell you guys, is go check out my TED Talk. I talk about how to break the reading habits that we have. I'm not going to turn this podcast, into like a 20-minute talk right now. But the cheapest, quickest way for you guys to learn how to read faster, you need to know what's holding you back.
Mm-hmm.
And for many people, at least in the UK, if you couldn't tell by my British accent, is we haven't had a class called reading since we were 10 or 12. Yet every other subject gets harder. And we're expected to keep up with, quote unquote, the reading age of a 12-year-old. So what you need to do is understand what habits are holding you back and how to break them. So to find that out, if you type in Jordan Harry into YouTube, you will see my TED Talk.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, type in how to read a book a day. And not only will you find my video, but you'll find some other really cool speed readers out there. Don't just learn from me. I encourage you to learn from different sources.
Awesome. I like it, man, because I know it's a big thing. Like a lot of people want to know how they can learn faster because the world just keeps getting busier and busier. So highly recommend check out the TED Talk and other resources. So, my next one is what's your best piece of overall business advice? So you can tell us that, but then I want you to tell us a little about your story here. So I want to learn more about StudyFast, tell us your ups, downs, how'd you get to where you are? You're only 21 years old. It's kind of nuts. So tell us how you did it, man.
To begin with, talking about comparing to one another, there's younger people doing bigger things than me.
Yeah.
And there's people older than me doing bigger things. So
For sure.
please don't compare yourself to me if you are 21 or older. You probably have a better beard than me. If you're listening to this, I have an awesome goatee. If the lighting was good enough. So how did I create StudyFast? Well, it started from solving my own problem.
Okay.
To give an example, all good businesses, the majority of them solve a problem. And whilst I was at uni, I used to have a speech impediment, so I never used to sound this posh. My mum took me to speech therapy. I got better at speaking. However, my reading speed suffered because I couldn't pronounce the words. I didn't understand them. And for anyone learning a new language, you realize if you can't pronounce a word, how slow your reading speed is. So when I got to uni, I realized, wow, I'm quite behind my peers. One night I Googled how to read faster, went to the top floor in the library, which no one goes to, found this old speed reading book. I actually ended up losing it, and that cost me £200. So that was a lot of fun.
Damn, £200, it's like 300 US, isn't it?
Well, if we leave Brexit, it will be worth nothing the pound. So, moving away from political issues, I lost the speed reading book, but I had absorbed the information, but it seemed like this superpower, which only the rare few of us could have. So, I put speed reading to bed, and I bought all these business books because I wasn't studying a business degree, but the whole idea of being an entrepreneur was sexy, work your own times, which is a lie. Passive income, which is a lie. It all seems very attractive.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had all these books on my bookshelf, and my friends were always asking me, what's that one? What's that one? And I honestly had to lie because I hadn't read any of them. So I picked up this speed reading thing again, and I spent a lot of money and time reaching out to speed readers because anything that we learn from other people. And then we kind of translate it into our own understanding. That's the process of learning. And so once I'd gone on this self-discovery of how to become a speed reader, I recall reading all these books, but I wasn't taking it in. So then I delved into memory training whilst I was at uni. Once again, reaching out to memory trainers, simply asking them. So we're talking about business advice. If you don't ask, you don't get. And I played the whole, I'm a poor student, and the worst case scenario is they don't get back to you, or they say no. Best case scenario, whilst you're sitting in bed on your phone sending these emails, is they invite you out to America for free to learn from them. And, I thank my mentors every day. I'm in contact with them on a monthly basis. And they taught me how to create a business, because for them, I was no competition, rightly or wrongly. Because naive for them, potentially, they saw me as a young guy.
Mm-hmm.
So once again, that already works against me when approaching corporates and universities. So they thought. Number two, I'm mixed race. I'm a person of color. And there is no one, to my knowledge, and to their knowledge, that looks like me. So once again, they didn't see that as competition.
Mm-hmm.
And number three, I don't have the years experience they have. I don't have a PhD. I don't have an awesome beard, unfortunately. And so for them, they were like, look, you're no competition to us in the nicest sense. They're probably kicking themselves now. My goal was, once again, to target education as opposed to corporations. And I've branched into corporations, but education is still my passion. And they were like, oh, there's no money in education. And I come back to saying this, is that we all find time and money for things that we can't afford, that we don't have time for. And in education, yes, it's a long process, but if you're bringing value, they will find budget. And all the things that they thought worked against me, and I want the listeners to kind of really take this in, actually separate me and have excelled my business. The fact that I'm young, the fact that I'm of color, the fact that I have great sense of humor. I know that's subjective.
I love that.
It all works for me. And the fact that, once again, being transparent, I do athletics and I have a modeling career as well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't look or sound like a geek. So I'm now attracting all these different people from all different fields and walks of life that can relate to me in some way or shape or form. So when you're starting out, don't feel like you have to create something massively different, and don't feel like your differences will be your disadvantage.
Mm-hmm. Dude, yeah, I love it, man. Beautiful answer. Woo! Hit it. All right, so my next one for you is, if you could give your even younger self one piece of advice, what would that be?
Okay, so if I could give my younger self advice, damn. So how young are we thinking?
I'm thinking like, we got like 12, we want you to be having some thoughts, like not under 10, because, I don't know. Maybe if you want to say under 10, but I feel like that's just like, I don't know. I don't remember much under 10. So,
That's
so
a fact.
yeah.
We actually start forming memories at the age of 3, but I can't remember what I had for lunch 2 days ago.
Yeah, so that's a lie. We just debunked the myth.
Very true. So for me, what I would tell my younger self is, don't change, because you'll never know the alternative. Yes, I could have become a professional footballer, but I don't know if I could have. I only know what I'm doing right now, and we need to have enough confidence in that. And so for me, I would say, don't change, Jordan. Continue on your path. Because for me personally, and this kind of links on to what I know you're going to ask in a moment, is things can always be worse. So I'd say keep pushing on, Jordan, because where I am right now, I'm really happy. And I know, of course, it can be better and it can definitely be worse.
Absolutely, man. So yeah, what's coming next. So I'm going to hit you with it. The next one is, in your opinion, what is the key to happiness?
So I remember when I saw this question, and, thankfully as a memory trainer, I can kind of formulate all my ideas and answers quite quickly. So I'm not reading off a script. For me, it was a case of, like I said, it can always be worse. And I know this sounds quite abstract, but I want to share my thought process. So, for example, this happens almost every day. I lose my cool. And I think in all our lives, we miss a train, our watch breaks, whatever. And we think, why, Lord? Why me? Of all people. And and it's quite extreme. I play the shit stick house. I hope I can swear on here, because I just did.
Swear away, man.
So I play the shit stick house. And so I say, okay, I've just missed my train. But somewhere in Kenya, there is a mum who has 4 children, who lives in a shit stick house, who now has to walk 5 miles to go get water from the nearest water fountain, to then take it back to her family, to then only do that process again the next day with no clear idea of what their future is going to be like. And yet those people still find beauty in their lives. And for book recommendations, The Man's Search for Meaning. I don't know if you've read it. By Viktor
Amazing.
Frankl.
Amazing book. Yeah.
Incredible book about a Holocaust survivor. He spent time in a concentration camp. And I believe he was a psychiatrist. Am I right in saying that?
It's been a while. It's been like 5 years, I think, since I read it, I believe. But that might be true. I'm not sure.
So he was a professional, and I know the Germans, if you had some sort of skill that they found valuable, they would give you, quote unquote, perks and benefits.
Okay.
So for him, he was able to kind of have this kind of eagle vision of life in a concentration camp while still being a Jew and still being submissive to their dictatorship. And he talked about how the sun would still come up and the picturesque scenes of the views outside the camp, and how for a split second the thought of his wife and all this and the other would kind of take him away from his kind of permanent pain for temporary pleasure. And what he realized was at least he can still remember his wife.
Mm-hmm.
And whilst there were many victims in that camp who couldn't remember the faces of their family because it had been that long. And so reading that book, and it was only about a year ago, made me really realize my shit stick house analogy is true and it's real. The problem is, we get caught up in our own lives and we're always looking at the next big thing. We're creatures that always want more. It's relative. We get the Mercedes, we want the Lamborghini. We get the Lamborghini, we want the Ferrari, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. Dude,
I'm happy with my Mercedes.
Hey, dude, I Uber everywhere, actually.
There you go.
I got my car down here in Miami. It's just easier. Don't have to worry about parking. So, but yeah, no, I actually always think about whenever I'm like upset, I actually always go back to that book in my mind. And I'm like, if this guy during the Holocaust was able to see or be like not necessarily happy, but able to like still
find the beauty.
Find the beauty. Yes, that's the way to say it. Then like for me to be down here in Miami, like, living well, you know what I mean? Like, what are these little problems? These are things I'm making up because I'm like bored or something. Like I'm fine, like, so I think the comparison's important in that sense. Comparison can help. And I agree. Like we were talking about before, like there's the opposite side, right? Like you don't want to be comparing yourself to like people's Instagram profiles. I think that can be bad for your mental health. But if you're going through something that you deem bad, think about the shit stick house. Like you're saying, like, is it really that bad? Or can you just take 5 minutes and breathe? You know what I mean? Like,
and we don't even have to go that extreme. We can just go to our friend who works at a supermarket 9 to 5, hates his job, financial turmoil. And I know it sounds bad, but to segue, a guy called Ty Lopez, I'm sure most people know him.
Yep.
He has this kind of 33 principle, which I don't know if you're aware of, Tyler.
I know Ty, but I don't know. I'm not familiar with that though.
Awesome. Don't quote me on this, but I don't think he originated it. At least he passes it on. So the idea is we want to spend 33% of our time with people below us, 33% of our time with people on our level, and 33% of our time with people above us. Now, of course, I've simplified that, but break your life down. Okay, let's take a sport. So you want to train with some people for some percentage of the time who are worse than you. Why? Because we all have an ego and that all needs feeding. You need to train with people on your level so it boosts your confidence and you can all have things that you can relate with. But then you also need to spend equal amount of time with people better than you because you need to learn from their mistakes and you need to figure out what makes them so successful. If you spend too much time with successful people, you will get demotivated. And that's when you will feel like your life is shit. If you spend too much time with those below you, well, you'll think you're a god amongst mere men. And if you spend too much time with people on your level, well, you're always going to be on that okay plateau.
I like this, dude. That's good stuff.
That's how I translated what he passed on.
Yeah. You need a balance, I think. A perfect balance. Yeah. I agree. Dude, thanks for sharing that. That's really valuable. So yeah, I mean, talk about Ty and talking about books.
Yeah.
So what is the best book that you've read, and what's the number one thing you learned from that?
So for me, it's going to be one that hopefully many people have heard, but if you haven't, you need to get off this podcast and go check it out. How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. The
Yep.
book is, I think it's nearly like 50 years old. It's coming up to 50 years old. It's been revised, and the examples in there are even older. And the one thing I took away, I mean, there's so much value, and I don't want to give it now because I want people to go out and get the book. I have no affiliation,
Yeah.
but it was probably the first book I read when I was trying to figure out how to start a business. And I generally believe, well, you have to be a people person. People buy from people. And the one thing the book taught me was how important someone's name is. It is the best compliment if you get it right, and it can be the best insult if you get it wrong.
Yeah.
And unknowingly in my subconscious, that kind of led me towards memory training, because I think we can all relate. We've met someone within 2 seconds and then we've forgotten their name.
Yep.
And it's a common problem. And as a memory trainer, I'm not innocent of this. I'm guilty at times. And so the only way we can do it, we don't forget things that are important, or if they're attractive. We don't forget an attractive person's name.
Yeah.
And we don't forget someone who's important to us. So once you understand how the brain works, you can then hack it. So that book taught me the concept and the importance of remembering someone's name, the handshake, eye contact. And then I went a step further and was like, okay, how do we hack this? So that's my recommended book and my recommended takeaway.
Love it, man. See, I tell people that all the time. Like, nobody forgets my name. And I think it's because, what I got going on right here,
For those that can't see what he just did, this is a gorgeous model pose with his hands.
I had to do it, dude. You set that up. I had to spike that one down. I love it. So next one, what's your favorite quote and why?
My favorite quote. I feel like we could be on this podcast for too long.
Dude, we might need to do a longer one in the future.
And with a glass of wine, I think it'd be interesting.
Dude, that would be great.
So be sure to tune into part 2. But for now, my favorite quote, and it's going to sound quite self-absorbed, but it's my own quote that I created.
Yeah, it's fun.
Recently started getting tattoos. Tattoos in places where I can cover them. Because once again, people do judge a book by its cover, ironically. So once again, we talk about me being different. I understand there's times where I need to cover it and, speak with eloquence. And there's times where I need to dumb it down and, show that I can relate. So the quote that I have on my chest is, one day, the talents my mother has given me will truly give her the life she deserves. And for people to kind of relate in their own aspects, the talents that we all have, because we're all talented in some area of our lives. What's your why? So we've broken it down into 2 things, my quote. I'm quite methodical. So we've got the first section, which is your talent. So identify what are your talents. And number 2, what's your why? So my why, whilst my mother's alive and even when she leaves, it's going to be her. And I'm going to use my talents to give her the life she truly deserves. And that could be taking her on cruises, whatever she wants, I want to be able to provide for. So that's my favorite quote. Figure out your talents and figure out your why.
I love it, man. Dude, that's good. So yeah, dude, thank you so much for coming on. Definitely, if you're willing, there will be a part 2. My last one for you on this one is, where can our listeners best connect with you, find you online?
Excellent. Well, until you hear from us again soon, I'm excited to see which direction we take that.
Yeah.
You can find me on Instagram. I'm really trying to go in on that and kind of document the journey. I think, like I said, entrepreneurship is romanticized.
Yep.
So if you follow me, or even just check out what I'm doing at Jordan with 2 N's and Harry with 2 Y's, shoot me a message and say that you heard of me from this podcast, and I'll give you access to one of my courses for completely free.
Oh, that's a good deal.
Thank you. For me personally, I don't make my millions. I don't make millions full stop, but I don't make my millions from online course sales.
Yep.
What allows me to do is I make my millions through EU funding, through the schools, which then allows me to give value like this, spend time with you now. Because look, we're only on this earth for a limited time, and I definitely want to leave some positive impact. So yeah, Instagram, I'm documenting the journey of what it's like to run a business. It's not sexy all the time. At Jordan Harry, 2 N's, 2 Y's. So thank you, Tyler. Muchas
Of course.
gracias. Pala
Of course.
tienes me. Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. And yeah, thank you again for coming on.